Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Ask Mary Anything Within Reason. It is wonderful to be here with you. Thanks for joining me this Sunday. Um, I'm guessing you have questions about many things that happened last week. Yeah, it's been another crazy, crazy week. And I guess that's, part of me thinks that on the one hand, that's kind of the new normal. But on the other hand, I think it's extraordinarily important. We don't let any of this get normalized. We have to pace ourselves and ground ourselves and all that stuff. But we cannot become inured to the insanity and the horror and the, just the what's the word I'm looking for? The gratuitous cruelty that's being inflicted upon the American people. And of course, the gratuitous incompetence. Because we are being run by a bunch of people who are wildly incompetent and don't know what they're doing, even though they're probably benefiting enormously from the wounds they're inflicting upon us. So again, a lot happened. Obviously, that a lot of tariffs kicked in with disastrous consequences for the markets, and obviously there are many, many knock-on effects of that. Not just the markets and what that entails in terms of people's 401ks, but also our relationships with our so-called allies. I'm not even sure if we can call them allies anymore, and on and on and on. So I want to jump in and get right to your questions because I have a feeling you have a lot on your minds tonight. Okay, from Critical. Question. Well, I don't mind good Americans moving up north. I'm sure feelings shared with my many Canadians here. The question is, who's going to stay and try to win back America from this mad king? Well, first of all, I appreciate that very much. It's wonderful to have a Canadian in the house. You guys rock, and we so appreciate everything you're doing to hold the line, because there's a lot we can't do, because many of us who are on the right side of this don't have a lot of power, which, gets us to your question. Who's staying? I think everybody has a different critical mass, everybody has a different line. We're hearing that people we didn't necessarily anticipate would be leaving are people like Timothy Snyder, who is an expert in fascist authoritarian states. Who wrote the book On Tyranny. From what I understand, he's leaving. He's moving, I believe, to Canada. I've heard other people high up in the military who served under the first Trump administration are planning to leave. A lot of people are going to Canada. A lot of people are going to Ireland. And I am not going to judge. I'm not going to judge. Everybody has a different experience. Everybody, as I said, has a different line. And quite honestly, everybody has a different threat level. And many of us have different levels of access to information. Some of us, on the one hand, don't know anything about what may or may not be planned for us, and others have intelligence sources who can let them know. So I'm not judging anybody, but the fact remains that we do need people to stay here and fight. Now, I'm not saying that you can't fight from outside. You can, in sort of a metaphorical way. I feel like I've been an outsider throughout this whole thing. I'm not, other than technically, like in terms of my DNA, I'm not a member of that family in any real sense of the word. I am not an insider in terms of, I don't hold elected office. I don't travel in those circles by any stretch of the imagination. So, I've always felt like I'm fighting outside of the system. But personally, I think I'm more effective fighting outside the system inside the country. I don't want to leave. I have no intentions of leaving, but that doesn't mean that people shouldn't have a plan in place. I think it would be foolish not to if you have that capability, but that's part of it too. Not everybody does. And I think again, unless certain lines are crossed, because we all have different kinds of responsibilities. We all have different people counting on us, different people we need to watch out for. That all has to get factored in. If I stay, and I don't mean me, I mean theoretically, if so-and-so stays, is that safer or less safe for people that person cares for and cares about and people who depend on that person. So it's a different calculus all the way around. But I think for me personally, and I know a lot of people who feel like this, it's going to take a lot to get me to leave for sure. And then the question is, all right, you're staying. Now what are you going to do? And that unfortunately is not an easy question to answer because, especially if you're like outside of the system and don't have access to the levers of power, what do you do? That's what we're all working on. So we'll keep you posted, but thank you for the question. Janina, question, will there be justice someday or do we have to live with injustice? I guess it depends on what you mean by justice and for whom. There will never be justice for Donald in any real sense of the word, unfortunately. And I hate saying that because if anybody deserves it, it's him. But there are many reasons for that. One is we have a corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court that does not believe in justice, does not believe in the rule of law, and does not believe in the United States Constitution. So in their infinite wisdom, they have made Donald essentially an imperial president, which means that as long as he can prove, and good luck trying to prove otherwise, that he has acted within the bounds of his office, as long as whatever horrific criminal acts he commits are official acts, he's untouchable. We've seen every single case against him has been dropped. The one case in which he was found guilty on 34 felony counts, no charges, no charges. The sentencing was indefinitely postponed, which means it will never happen. He was never held accountable for the 11 counts of contempt of court for which he was found guilty during that trial. He's an adjudicated rapist who was fined tens of millions of dollars as restitution for his victim. He has not paid a dime. And he was also found liable for very serious business fraud. And he owes the state of New York over $500 million. And not one penny of that has been paid. So will there be justice for Donald Trump? I doubt it. I sincerely doubt it. And he is in a position to pardon anybody else we might want. However, it also depends on what happens in the next year to 2 years, or maybe 6 months to whenever the end of this Trump regime is. If things continue to implode, if things continue to burn down the way they seem to be, maybe. But who's going to hold these people accountable? We need to get Democrats back into office, and we need to figure out what that means. And we need to make sure that the Democrats are up to the task. Many of them are not, and those who are not need to be replaced by Democrats who understand where we are and are willing to meet the moment. From Think So, question, why doesn't Donald buy more attractive golf clothing? Well, he's delusional. So this is the thing. If I could draw, which I cannot do, I would draw a cartoon that I think would explain Donald Trump and his psychopathologies. Okay, so imagine somebody who can draw. Donald is standing in front of a mirror, and in my version, he's still like a late teenager, or like in his early 20s, late teens, early 20s. He's looking in the mirror. Now he's standing in front of the mirror looking like himself. He looks in the mirror, and the reflection he sees looks like some Greek god, right? He just always looks like a Greek god to himself. And reflected in the mirror in the background is my grandfather. And my dad's on the floor, and my grandfather is stomping on my dad with his foot. And Donald knows that if he becomes anything like his older brother, Freddie, my grandfather's going to kill him. So Donald is driven both by this intense fear of failure, which in my family meant, being a good guy, and his overpowering delusions about how great he is because he had to spend his entire childhood and adulthood proving to my grandfather how great he was. So He's a terrified little boy who also has convinced himself that he's just great on every level. So he looks in the mirror wearing those stupid black pants and that stupid white shirt and that ridiculous fucking hat, and he thinks he looks like a god. That's why when, somebody painted a portrait of him that was a reasonable likeness, he freaked out so much. That's why, those NFTs that show him looking like a superhero or a cowboy or an astronaut, he actually thinks those are accurate portrayals of him because he's insane. That's why. Also, he's really cheap. Ward Arcade. Question. Miss Mary. Very formal of you. Do you think Mar has any positive things left to contribute? We're talking about Bill Barr. No, I haven't thought that for a very, very long time. I don't think Bill Barr is funny. I don't think he's edgy. I don't think he's cool. He thinks he's cool. I don't think he has anything to say that's of interest to anybody. He also is a misogynist and he is a virulent Islamophobe. I do not understand why he gets a pass on the left for that. It is despicable, and I have no interest in hearing anything that deeply unfunny creep has to say. I hope I wasn't vague about my feelings about Bill Maher. Morris Folk DK. Question. Which was your favorite of the signs seen around the country during the protest yesterday? Actually, I have one. I wish I had a picture of it to show you, but this was awesome. Let me pull it up. Okay, so it's an awesome picture of a penguin. Like, it's really well done. This thing is adorable, and it says, "I'm just here so I don't get tariffed." Right? It's perfect, and I'm telling you, those penguins know of what they speak. So that was my favorite. There are a lot of great signs, but yeah, that was my favorite. That was from one of our people. So thank you for that. Made me happy. Leaping kitties, my favorite kind. Question. Has the White House even acknowledged the devastation of the tornadoes? What tornadoes? There was golf to be played. Do not bother us with such pesky things as tornadoes. Yeah, no. And we shouldn't expect it. We shouldn't expect it because they don't care. And now they're in a position, unlike the first administration, they don't have to pretend anymore. They don't have to keep up appearances because they don't need anybody's votes anymore. They're going to do whatever they want. And, according to them, there aren't going to be elections in 2028 because Donald is absolutely convinced that he's going to have a third term. So why should he waste his precious time talking about, being informed about, or doing anything to help victims of tornadoes? He's got a golf game to play. Or I should say, sorry, he's got a golf game to cheat at. Brant, thank you very much, Brant. That's very kind of you. Question. Did Grandpa and Donald scream when they were angry? Well, Donald, I never actually saw. I have to remember when in growing up, I spent lots and lots of time at my grandparents' house, which we called the house. It's a very warm, fuzzy place. So that's mostly where I saw Donald. And Donald was the person, like he was the center of the universe there. So nobody crossed him. Everybody agreed with him. Everybody kissed his ass. There was literally no reason for him to get angry. The only other place I spent time, real time, we would go out to dinners and stuff like that. But again, it was just us. Like there was nobody challenging anybody. So, going out to dinner, lunch, whatever. We also spent a fair bit of time at my grandfather's office on Avenue Z in Brooklyn. So it's sort of a similar thing. Like I rarely saw Donald there, but my grandfather obviously was there all the time. So I only saw my grandfather in either one of his two domains. Like he controlled everything in the house, everything in his business. So there were no reasons for him to be angry. And he wasn't, I mean, yeah, he was a sociopath, but if you met him, right, and just chatted with him, you would think he's personable enough. He seems cheerful enough. Like he whistled all the time. Everything went his way because he controlled everything. And he kept it that way. Like he made sure that he existed in these realms in which he could control everything, which is why his world was actually quite small in some ways. He was a very provincial guy. Um, and if you were beneath him, which most of us were, of course, and you challenged him, which I did on occasion because I don't know. I don't think I had a death wish, but you know, not the smartest thing to do. But on those rare occasions I challenged him, he's not afraid of me. I can't do anything to him. So he just kind of like laughed at me contemptuously and would say something like, if I asked for something, like, I had dropped out of college, for example. And after a year and a half, I really wanted to go back because I loved it. And I just, I dropped out for a reason. It wasn't because I didn't love school. I wanted to go back. I was very serious about it. I wanted to go to grad school and all this stuff. And when I told him, he just said, "What do you want to do that for? That's stupid." I said, "Well, because I'm serious about this. I want to get an advanced degree." And he said, "Well, why don't you just become a receptionist or something and go to trade school?" And I said, "Because that's not what I want to do. And that doesn't make any sense to me at all." And then he just kind of sneered at me and he said, "That's nasty." So that's as close because he's not going to waste his anger on me. But on those very rare occasions when he got challenged in a way that he didn't like, my dad did this to him once. He got, I should say, absolutely off the charts enraged. A very, very rare, but that's sort of when the sociopath in him came out, was from what I understand, because I never witnessed it, was not a pretty sight. But rarely though, rarely. I bet Donald gets angry all the time now because he's not in control of anything anymore. And that's fun. And I hope it hurts him. Because that's who we are now. Oh. All right, Abby. Question. If you could send Donald into a sci-fi horror movie, which one had to choose? Can I just pick a very specific scene from a very specific movie? And just make sure that we understand this is all theoretical? The scene between, let's see, the movie is Alien, the first one. By far the best one. And the scene is when they decided, it's Veronica Cartwright, Yaphet Kotto, and Sigourney Weaver have decided they must leave the Nostromo. So they have to blow up the ship because the alien is still in there, and they know that the company wanted the alien to come back to Earth to use as a biological weapon. And they don't want that to happen. So the alien is still on the Nostromo. So they are going to blow that ship to smithereens. So they're getting ready. They're getting the shuttle ready so they can escape in the shuttle while the Nostromo blows up. So at the very end, it's one of the last scenes. Sigourney Weaver's character, Ripley, is getting the shuttle ready while Lambert and Parker are getting the coolant they're going to need for the shuttle. And then the alien comes up behind Lambert. And Parker's like, "Lambert, get out of the way." It does not end well for either character. That's the scene I'm picking. Oops. I hope that wasn't too specific. And again, entirely theoretical. One of the best movies ever. I'm ashamed to tell you how many times I've seen it. Heather, thank you so very much for that. That's awesome. Okay, just me. Australia's in the house. Thank you as always for that. Comment, heartened to see the numbers out in protest, also heartened by American support for Canada I've seen on US clips, right? Yeah, everybody did a good job yesterday. So appreciative. Yeah, it was amazing. I was not able to go to a protest, but I was in DC. I saw lots of pictures, and I know other people who were able to be at the protest, and yeah, the numbers are growing, and that's important. And not only that, obviously it was all peaceful, and from what I understand anyway, and I don't know this to an absolute certainty, but from what I understand, there was no government interference, so that's a good sign. I'm not saying that will always be that way, but well done, everybody. And yeah, the support for Canada is one, as you say, heartening, but also incredibly necessary because Canada is really showing up in a big way. Melissa Ann, thank you so very much for that. That's really generous of you. Question: why are we not talking about the Signal chat news? This drives MAGA and 47 at the wall more than anything. More than anything, still need to continue to talk about tariffs effects. Yeah, it's then this is what has always happened. This massive, massive self-imposed crisis occurs. And by crisis, I mean the people at the upper echelons of the United States government who are in the intelligence community betrayed their country, essentially. It was the worst national security debacle in modern history, and it was intentional, and it was sloppy, and it violated the Espionage Act. Uh, this is huge. So the problem is this: who gets to decide if anything happens? Well, a couple of people. But the main person that people know about and are looking to is the boss of the people who betrayed us. Do you think Donald Trump is going to hold his people accountable for doing something that is ostensibly on his watch? No. Do you think anybody's going to lose their job over this? No. That is not going to happen. And that's obscene. Does that mean that media should drop it? No. Luckily, there is an inspector general whose job it is to investigate things like this, regardless of who's in charge, regardless of who was involved. The inspectors general are in place because they are nonpartisan. That is their job, to look beyond any partisan affiliations and investigate what happened. Here's the problem: Donald has fired many inspectors general. So we have a lot of agencies in this country that have no oversight whatsoever. I guess he forgot about the guy at the DOD, and for all we know, that person will also be fired. But for right now, there is an investigation ongoing. But because of all of the other things that have happened, like the tariffs and the stock market and what's happening with our allies and the retaliatory tariffs being placed upon our products by our former allies, all that stuff. The Signal thing is getting lost in the shuffle again, in big part because Donald dropped it. It's like, nope, nope, nothing to see here. Move along. I do not think anybody is going to drop the story about the effects of the tariffs because those are ongoing. The only reason people weren't talking about it over the weekend is because the markets are closed. If the markets had been open yesterday, they would have continued to nosedive. So as it is, the Dow lost over, I think it was over 3,500 points in 2 days. That's insane. Trust me, that story is not going anywhere because it can't, because it's going to continue to be the story. So, and I mean, we never stop covering this stuff. So stick with us. Let's see. Hang on. Sorry, guys. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Have I ever done this before? Yes, I have. What? What's happening? I don't know. Okay, so from Nadine, I understand Donald was a Democrat. When asked if he would run for president, he said no, but if he did, I would run red because they believe everything you tell them. Yeah, I mean, Democrat in name only. Like he was one of those opportunistic business people. Like he gave money to Republicans, he gave money to Democrats. I mean, he was ostensibly pro-choice, but like he has no ideology at all. But as a New Yorker, like it just made more sense. And New York at the time is almost always dominated by Democratic politicians. So, my grandfather, who was a Republican, was the same way. Many of his cronies were Democrats, and he gave lots of money to Democratic politicians. That's just the game that gets played. My grandfather also had no ideology at all. Okay, let's see. So what I believe what he said is he would run as a Republican because Republicans are so stupid they'll believe anything you tell them. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but yeah, he has such contempt for the people who continue to support him. You'd think they'd care. They don't, because he hates the right people, and that is literally all they care about. Kimberly, excuse me, guys. Do you think that do we have any chance regaining world leadership status we enjoyed, earned by soft power and promise to defend Europe, which gave us tremendous privilege, allowing us to have bases on their soil? No, no, we don't. Why? Well, first of all, there's literally no reason any country on the planet should trust us anytime soon, and I mean potentially for generations, because you know we elected Donald Trump in 2016. Obviously, there are questions about that. I understand that. I have serious questions about that. However, we grabbed democracy from the jaws of autocracy in 2020, and we got Joe Biden in, and we thought, hey, we turn this around. We can make up for that. We can do our level best. But then we put Donald Trump back into office again. That's unforgivable. Unforgivable. Nobody should ever trust us. Certainly not in my lifetime. Also, look at what we've squandered. Look at what they've dismantled. Look what we've destroyed. Look what they're continuing to destroy. And I don't just mean agencies. That's horrific enough. But as you say, our ability to wield soft power. They don't this regime doesn't want that. They don't understand it. They only understand hard power, which is not how you become the most influential, powerful country on the planet. They don't understand statecraft. They don't understand diplomacy, and they have contempt for these things. They're also trying to dismantle the Western alliance, which is potentially the greatest thing to come out of the post-World War II order. It's insanity. But that's what they're doing. So we opt out of NATO. We tell our Western allies that they're on their own and we are not part of it anymore. We don't get that back potentially ever. So, no. And I'm sorry to say this, we don't deserve the trust of the rest of the world anymore. We have so much work to do just to get back to baseline. And it would require not just a Democratic Party that understands what we're facing and is willing to meet the moment, but a party in power that understands the work that needs to be done. We don't need to rebuild We need an entirely new blueprint. We need to start over. And unless and until we have people in power willing to do that, I don't know. It cannot be more of the same, obviously. Philip, question. Why does Scribbleface? I've not heard that before. I like it. Why does Scribbleface think a trade deficit means the U.S. is subsidizing another country? Is he stupid? Yes. He's a deeply stupid person. He doesn't understand how trade works. He doesn't understand how macroeconomics work. He does not understand how the global global economy works. He does not understand the interrelatedness of all of these things. He understands nothing except, again, hard power, which means what? Sorry. It means he only understands negotiating or operating from a position of dominance, which is hysterical because he's such a pathetic loser. That's all he understands, though. So if you've got one tool in your toolbox, you're not gonna have any success. And he again, he doesn't understand those things and do you think people haven't tried to explain it to him? Do you think people haven't tried to explain to him over and over and over and over again that tariffs are taxes on American consumers? Yeah, he has this bizarre obsession, and he's not going to listen. So not only is he a deeply unintelligent person, he's the only person I've ever met in my life with zero intellectual curiosity, which means what? He doesn't think he needs to learn anything. Good luck with that. It is a miserable way to go through life, and it is one of the worst qualities you could have in a so-called leader. Let's see. Christopher, thanks so much, Christopher. I appreciate that. Question. I'm happy to see the turnouts in the nationwide protests from yesterday. Do you think having continued protests will make a difference at all? Yes, 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 yes. Can I say that more emphatically? Yes. Okay. Here's the thing. As we've seen in other countries, protests are vast. Like seriously, vast percentages of the population are showing up and flooding the streets. We haven't done that. Like I get it. There's a lot going on. People are confused, what have you. It's a big country. But if we got, 1/10, not 1/10 of the turnout other countries get per capita, that would do the trick. So it's very good to see that these protests are growing, and they need to get bigger, but they also need to get more frequent, and they need to become so big and constant that they are inescapable and impossible to ignore, for sure. But I also believe, and I don't know if I'll be proven right or not. I think we're going to need to get to the point where the protests are so kind of incessant and massive that it leads to shutting everything down. I think that's where we're headed. I honestly think that's what it's going to take. And a lot of things have to happen in order for that to become a reality. But, and here's the interesting thing, many of those things that need to happen are the direct result of the destructive and catastrophic so-called policy decisions being made by the Trump regime. So there you go. Brant, thank you so much again. Question, did Grandpa wake up at 5:30 a.m. like DJT or earlier? Yeah, my grandfather, I don't know, maybe it's a sociopath thing. He did not need a lot of sleep. First of all, I don't think Donald is a sociopath. I'm not diagnosing him. I'm making a distinction between them. My grandfather didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He had no bad habits other than being a sociopath and being cruel and liking to he loved humiliating people who had no power. But in terms of his physical being, he had no vices. He ate a lot of meat and potatoes. Shocking, I know. But he's a very solidly built, this is a guy who wasn't I think he got sick for the first time in his life when he was like late 70s. Never sick a day in his life, which made him really compassionate for people who were sick. by which I mean he had no compassion for people who were sick or weak in his view. So he was just one of those people who only needed like a very little amount, a small amount of sleep. Donald, on the other hand, probably does need a lot of sleep, but he has a caffeine addiction. I mean, if he drinks as many Diet Cokes as we believe he does, I mean, I've heard he drinks up like 12 Diet Cokes a day. That's an addiction to caffeine. If he stopped drinking caffeine tomorrow, he'd probably sleep for like a week and he would have a migraine. That's a lot of caffeine over decades. So he's not awake at 3 o'clock in the morning because he just doesn't need sleep. He's awake because he's constantly stimulating himself with caffeine. And as to other things, I am not speculating because I have no information about any of that other stuff at all. And honestly, it's not of interest to me because what difference does it make? He still acts like a maniac, one way or the other. Mama Brooke, thank you so much for this. That's very kind of you. Comment. Thank you, Mary, for being logical and a logical and intelligent mind in the sea of stupidity. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Fox Propaganda Network brainwashed most of my family, though I was a lobbyist advocate. They believe nothing I say. Wow, I'm really sorry, and it's tragic how common that story is. I you know, when the history of this era is written, if it is ever, quite honestly, what Roger Ailes and Rupert Murdoch did to democracy worldwide, but in particular in this country, will go down as one of the most vile, despicable, and destructive acts in modern history. The way Fox propaganda has seeped into our bloodstream, the people it has sucked in and changed. People are altered by the ways in which they view their very siloed sources of information. And Fox was there first. And of course, CNN didn't help either by creating the 24-hour day news cycle. So, yeah, it's really bad. Jen, thank you so much, Jen. Very much appreciate that. Comment, the day of protest was amazing. I was in Hamilton, Montana, home of Rocky Mountain Labs, infectious disease research. 700 people showed up. Red states are waking up. That is awesome news. I'm so happy you shared that. Listen, guys, I know we focus on big cities, blue cities, and it's good because I think it inspires people to see like tens of thousands of people showing up. However, let us not lose sight of how incredibly meaningful it is when 700 people in a small place in a red state show up. That's incredible. And that happened in Alaska, and that happened in places in Alabama, and that happened everywhere. So, there were 1,400 protests all over the country. I mean, we don't have final numbers on how many people showed up. That's a big ask. But knowing that a significant percentage of a population in a small red place are out there, that should give us all a lot of hope, as much as, massive protests in red cities. So thanks for sharing. Rock and steady. Thanks so very much for that, as always. That's very kind of you. Question: not long ago, Donald was making noise about annulling the pardons enacted by President Biden. He seems to have stopped. Do you think he saw something shiny, got distracted, or actually realized it was a bad idea? I don't know, because he's stupid. I mean, it's very possible that somebody convinced him it was a bad idea because he's setting himself up for the same thing. Like the next person could overturn all of his, but then again, he also doesn't think he's going anywhere. I think it's more that he just got distracted and forgot about it. It's an idiot. In the middle of nowhere, thank you so much for your contribution. We appreciate it. Comment: as a senior who has little means to move, I've decided not to let him ruin my last year. So how do I get involved? My name reflects my location. P.S. I felt the same about Bill Maher for years. Well, thank you for that concurrence, because it drives me crazy when people on the left think he's a good guy because he's so not. Okay, well, first of all, I appreciate your it's so important that you say that. Do not let these people steal your joy. There's a lot of things to have joy about in this world and in this life. Yeah, things are hard, but there's so much else to focus on as well. So I'm very glad that you've made that commitment to yourself. As for getting involved, I mean, there are all sorts of ways. Even if you're in the middle of nowhere, you can join online communities. You can learn about voter registration. You could learn about um, all sorts of other initiatives to raise funds for candidates, or just get involved in encouraging other people to run for office. That's huge. Democrats should be running for every single elected office at every single level of government everywhere. There are no excuses, none whatsoever. So lots to get involved in. So thank you for that. Lunice, thank you very much. Comment: Donald is my grandmother and family's malignancy. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. This is not just limited to one person. This is, one of the reasons I wrote my first book. I mean, there were many, but one of them was because I knew that a lot of it, what I had to say about my family and the psychological history of my family was that it would resonate with a lot of people, especially in the wake of the 2016 election and seeing how things like Fox were altering people's perceptions of reality. So yeah, a lot of that going around. Six Sense Amelia, New Zealand. Thank you for that. Also, comment: late fee, listening on 2 times speed to catch up. Well, thank you. And that was not necessary. Just so you guys know, there are no late fees. Come as you are, come as you will. It's fine. But thank you for that. That's very kind. And it's funny. Regina, thanks so much. That's great. Appreciate it. Comment: this week, economic protests, don't buy from Walmart. Next week, buy nothing except small business goods. Yeah, listen, again, some people live in places where the only place to buy something, the only accessible big box store is a Walmart or a Target. And, that's okay. You do what you can. You need food, you need supplies. But where possible, of course. And look, there's 2 things. If it's an option, never buy from Walmart, never buy from Target, never buy from Amazon. There are always other places. Buy from, if it has to be a big box store, buy from Costco, right? But do your best to replace whatever you're buying from those big box stores, with the exception of Costco, at local businesses, small local businesses. I'm trying really hard to do that. But I live in New York City, so it's not exactly difficult for me. It's much harder for people who live in places that are dominated by big box stores. This country has things called food deserts, which is despicable. So if you live in a food desert, you're off the hook here. But, if it's an option for you, please do your best, which is really all we can do. Daniel, thank you. Comment: also paying my late fee. Again, not necessary, but we started a trend here. But I don't want to mislead you. There's no late fee. But if you chip in, we appreciate it. Thank you, Daniel. Mimi, question: do you think those arrested by ICE will ever be released? I'm deeply worried about it. Honestly, I'm deeply, deeply worried about it. And unfortunately, I cannot answer your question in the way I would like. So, and that should matter to people. Dennis, thank you as always. That's very kind of you. Question: did you hear about the Russian punk band who came here on Friday to encourage us to fight against fascism? Is that Pussy Riot? Yeah, of course it is. Why did I even ask? Yeah, Pussy Riot's fantastic. And Lawrence O'Donnell has the lead singer on occasion. So I'm wondering if she was a guest on his show. Yeah, listen, if anybody knows, it's them. Listen to them. For sure. They rock, so to speak. Unicorn hypnotist. I like that. Question: do you think they are grandpa fretting Donald? Yeah, I do actually. Let me explain. Again, I'm not making any diagnoses here. I'm not a neurologist. I'm not a neuropsychologist. And I'm also, even as a clinical psychologist, I'm in no position to diagnose Donald, and I don't even think it's necessary. However, just as an observer of things, I think we can all say that Donald has deteriorated over the last 8 years, and he's rapidly deteriorated over the last two. Um, seem to be some cognitive issues going on. Plus, let's remember he has severe psychiatric disorders that he's had for decades that have gone undiagnosed and untreated for decades. Those are deteriorating. He's under enormous amounts of stress. The guy's not doing well. Oh well, what are you going to do about it? However, there are moments when he reminds me of my grandfather when my grandfather had Alzheimer's. So there came a point because my grandfather went into his office 6 days a week, always. And he was kind of towards the end of the Alzheimer's. It was really bad, and he had forgotten almost everybody, but he remembered his work, and he remembered his office. Every day, somebody dressed him up in his three-piece suit. He took his chauffeur-driven limousine to the office in Brooklyn, and he sat behind his desk, and somebody put a stack of papers, and he spent the entire day signing those papers, and they were all blank. Dad, sign these important documents. There was nothing on them, and he signed them all day long. And he thought in his head that he's the king of the world, and he's running his empire. Donald reminds me of that sometimes, and I think it is the job of most of the people in the executive branch to protect Donald from his own deterioration, and to protect not to and to protect the secret of how badly he's deteriorating. They're doing a pretty lousy job, which is good. Nadine, question: will he face charges after his term? No, he will not. He might get impeached, like if Democrats take over the House next year. He would almost certainly get impeached, or certainly there will be impeachment hearings. Will he get convicted in the Senate? Well, it would require the Democrats to take over the Senate, which is a pretty big ask. But in terms of formal criminal charges, no, which makes me sad and extremely angry. V, question. Is there any plan in place when Donald finally gets to the point of no return? He looks really bad lately. I'm guessing no one wants to do it. I mean, I'm sure there's a plan in place, but I also think that they're going to play this out as long as they possibly can. Again, protecting him as much as possible, keeping the truth from getting out to the rest of us as much as humanly possible. But let's be clear: as soon as he stops being useful, as soon as he starts making, like being, it's so God, it's so weird to say this because he's so obviously deranged, and everything he's doing is crazy. So you would think that line would have been crossed already, but they still are finding him useful, apparently. But whatever the line is that hasn't been crossed yet, I do not know. I have a very different one. And as far as I'm concerned, he crossed it decades ago. But sure, there is a plan in place either to invoke the 25th Amendment, which would remove him from office with the vote of his cabinet, or just let this play out. And I mean, this is already what's happening. He's sort of a figurehead, and he plays golf a lot, and he says incendiary things, and he does all sorts of crazy things, but he gives license to the people who really have the power, like Elon Musk and other people behind the scenes. So that will continue in perpetuity, unless and until Donald does something so egregious that he is no longer capable of staying in office. And then they'll just replace him with JD Vance, and it will all continue the same. These paws have claws. Good. They should. Question: if you do manage to get Democrats back into office, how long will it take, and how much will it cost to get your country back to what it used to be? Thank you, Canada. You guys are awesome. I don't know. How long will it take? It will take a long time. It will take years. It will cost a lot of money. It will cost a lot of sacrifices. It will cost a lot in terms of our political capital, our diplomatic capital, and how long will it take to get us back to where we used to be? I hope we never do get back to what we used to be. We need to be something else entirely. We're where we are because of what we used to be. So, but generations of single party rule. So, that's not a guarantee. And also, a wildly different, much more progressive, much stronger Democratic Party than the one we have. We got a question from Substack, which I love. Bob asks, would you support Donald getting a legitimate test for dementia Alzheimer's? Whether I support it or not, it's not happening. Yes, I think every candidate should be subject to a full background check, an FBI vetting process, and a full physical and a full psychological psychiatric testing, and it should be done by a nonpartisan commission of mental health and health professionals across the board. I'm absolutely in support of that, but it's too late. So I'm not sure what difference it makes. Yeah, of course you should, and I would support it, but it's not going to happen. So, Diane, thank you so much, Diane. In DC, did you see this sign on baby and carrier worn by my dad? Quote, hands off my future, unquote. I did not. I wish I had. That's a great sign. Yes, Republicans, keep your hands off our children's future. But they're not, so we need to stop them. So let's keep that in mind. That should be incentive. Neely, wow, thank you, Neely. It's very kind of you. Comment, you really are so important to the people of this country. Thank you very much. I think that's overstating it, but I appreciate it. Funny too, you crack me up more than I can tell you. And you have the best odds. Wow. Okay. I think that's probably unquantifiable. But thank you. Listen, and I appreciate your appreciation of my humor. It is I mean it's necessary. We have to laugh when we can because things are very dark at times and serious. So if I can contribute to lightening things up at all, I'm happy to do it. And it's awesome to have you guys here appreciating it because that makes me happy. So thank you. Susan. Thank you, Susan. That's very kind of you. Comment. It's me versus my husband, his whole family, my whole family. They really would like for me to shut up. Not going to happen. Yeah, that is wow. I do not know how you do it. I am in a uniquely privileged position. I'm sort of weird to put it that way. I'm in this position because I don't have, with one very important exception who has nothing to do with any of this. I don't have a family anymore, so I don't have to deal with this stuff. It's very, very, very easy for me to see things as black and white. I don't have to negotiate. I don't have to compromise. I don't have to do any of that. I do not know how you manage. I hope you don't have to manage for too much longer because that has to be enormously stressful. I think though, in that situation, you have to be careful in the sense that that's a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress. So you don't have to go after everything. That's a pick your battles situation. So just try not to let everything get its teeth into you. And I'm also sorry because that sounds very difficult. And like I said, I don't have to deal with any of that. So can't imagine. Lee, thank you so very much, Lee. That's very kind. Question. Hey, Mary, can I suggest you consider temporary citizenship, the Principality of Sealand? £7.99 a month, so much cheaper than Don's $5 million and arguably much nicer at the moment. Hashtag rights for penguins. I'm going to do that. Yeah. Where do I get my visa? The penguins require visa. Well, we now know who knew. Penguins export products. I don't know how they make them. They've got these like little flippers. They can't fly. How they ship the goods is beyond my comprehension. I don't think they can swim very far, but they are wily. So I guess, yeah. So I guess they know how to collect money in exchange for a visa. I'm sorry, temporary citizenship. I want to live in Sealand. I really do. I'm guessing I don't have to bring much. So yeah, just tell me when to send my £7.99. and I'm there. Hashtag rights for penguins. I have to say though, despite the fact that it's just absurd and insane and stupid that Donald did slap tariffs on islands uninhabited by humans, slapped some tariffs on penguins. It did give us the opportunity to learn that penguins are on the right side of this fight, which we should have known would go without saying because penguins are awesome. Sybil, thanks so very much, Sybil. That's fantastic. Question: how does Donald's dementia affect his id and ego? Well, that's a supposition I'm not willing to make. I don't know if he has dementia. All I can say with any certainty at all is that Alzheimer's runs in my family, or my grandfather had Alzheimer's, and it has a very significant genetic component. And again, aforementioned undiagnosed, untreated psychiatric disorders over decades. So I don't know. I think what more affects his id and his very fragile ego is the stress and the increasing danger he's under that this lifetime project of his is soon to be at end. He has spent his entire life and almost all of his energy trying to protect himself from the reality of who he is, which is absolutely nothing of what he pretends to be. So yeah, that's serious stuff. And that is one of the other things that keeps him up at night. Weird thing is, he doesn't know it. Yeah. My wish for Donald is that at some point in his miserable life, he has the gift of self-awareness. It would be a gift for us. Yeah, because that's apparently who I am now too. Razamanaz. Cool. Another currency, I don't know. Awesome. Thank you so much. Comment, Rand Paul spoke against tariffs. Your thoughts? I think Rand Paul's horrible, but broken clock, etc. He's a libertarian, so he is not in favor of government anything. He doesn't like the government to dictate how people live their lives, and he believes in small government. Libertarianism is not something I think is a serious ideology at all, and he's not a serious person. But yeah, every once in a while he speaks up. Basically, he speaks up. He does the right thing for the wrong reasons. That kind of sums up Rand Paul's existence, and it's very infrequently, by the way. Claire, thank you very much, Claire. Question: do you think the Penguins will pay up? No, and nor should they. No way. And that's another reason I'm going to become a temporary citizen of Sealand. Because if their international trade takes a blow, I want to support them in whatever way I can. Also, I may need somewhere to escape to, so just in case. Just kidding. Jacqueline, thank you so much, Jacqueline. Question: Mary, we keep talking as though Donald is ordering all the mayhem, but since he's so stupid, who is really cooking up all the terror and destruction? Well, here's the thing about Donald. He's a fucking idiot. And he doesn't know anything. He's doing it naturally. Like this tariff thing, this is all him. This is all him. The other stuff, though, the dismantling of the agencies and the basically the undermining of American democracy, that's other people. He's essentially handing over the reins to people like Elon Musk and Republican Party, who have ceded all of their own constitutional authority to the executive branch to do that. He doesn't care. But if somebody convinced him that it'll make him more rich and give him more power, you just threw them the keys. Because that's who he is. Christina, wow, Christina, thanks so very much. That's very generous of you. Comment, thank you for being so real and authentic. I appreciate you and your team. Well, thank you for that. We love doing this. We feel honored to be able to do this. And I appreciate that you think I'm real and authentic. I mean, I am. I don't know quite how else to be, so I'm glad it's coming across. So thank you. All right. I just have some people to thank, which I will do now. Marshall, super sticker, thank you so much. Kim as well. A bunch of super stickers here. Kim, thank you. Dusk Tracy, thank you so very much. Kimberly, thank you as well. Amy, awesome. Thank you so much. Mariana, thank you as always. That's fantastic. Ed, thank you so much for that. Lori, another super sticker. Thank you very much. Nadine, awesome. Thank you. Sally, wow. Thank you so very much. You guys are being really generous tonight. I really appreciate it. Jerry, thank you. Rock and Steady, thank you as always. Thank you, gentlemen. Missoula. Cool. Good to know. 90% odds. Australian, thank you so very much. And yeah, lucky for you guys, Rupert is no longer Aussie. Sally, another super sticker. Thank you so very much for that. That's fantastic. My Simulated Life, thank you very much. Laura, thank you. Yes, any crowd size crowd size will make that little man jealous. So yeah, that's another incentive for us to make the crowds big. Aaron, thank you very, very much. I'm sorry, I'm in a bit of a rush, so I will get to your questions next time, I promise you. Just me, thank you again as always. Seriously, so appreciate it. Ms. Money, thank you so very much for that. Marianne, DW3, another Australian, thank you so much from Sydney, Australia. I love Sydney so much. So hello. Elfan, thank you very much. I live in the UK. What can we do to help? Just don't hate us with a broad brush. Some of us are on the right side of things. So, just keep believing that we're going to do whatever we can to turn this ship around. Diana, thank you very much. Kay as well, thank you. Yeah, we told Felon what we thought of him yesterday. Yep, we did, and we're going to keep doing it. Video Nidio, thank you so very much as well. Scott, super sticker. Pam, another super sticker. Thanks, guys. So appreciate it. Elena Dahl, thank you very much. It's really generous of you. Northern Tier FPV, thank you. Tariff-free penguins are happy penguins, aren't they? You know what? Also, tariff-free people, happy people. Just me again, outdoing yourself, as always. Thank you so much. Also, you too, 98% odds. Herd Island cancels its F-35 contract. Good, glad to hear it. Demi, thank you so very much. And finally, our last super sticker, Blaze YouTube, thank you so very much for that. All right, you guys are awesome. And thank you for hanging in with me a little late tonight. There's a lot to get to. Sorry I didn't get to all of it. Okay, so thanks everybody on YouTube. Thanks to the tiny number of people on Twitter who are sifting through the rubble to find us. Thanks to all of our people on Substack who are watching the live stream. We so appreciate your being here. Please come more. And everybody here, go over to my Substack. It's called The Good in Us. I think you guys will like it there and like the people there. And to everybody listening to this in podcast form, we so appreciate you. To all of our super stickers, to everybody giving us gifts, thank you so very, very much. It means everything to us. It's like we're really trying to grow here, and every single penny is towards that effort and to make this better and to be better for you. So thank you. We are almost at 400,000 subscribers. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It helps us so very much. Also, what helps is liking and sharing the videos, leaving comments after the videos post. That helps a lot as well. So please do all of those things if you can. To our amazing moderators for keeping this community as awesome as it is. It is a place we always want to spend time. So thank you for that. And of course, to my extraordinary team in general, but on Sundays, it's just to Mercedes in particular for hanging out and doing the heavy lifting while I just get to talk. All right, guys, thank you so much for everything. We will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern for Mary Trump Live. That's Monday through Friday, always 6 p.m. Eastern. Of course, we have videos dropping every single day, so please check those out. And that does it for me. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And again, I will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind.